so we'll call the meeting officially to order. We'll start off with our minutes. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read the minutes from the March 15th meeting, and if so, we'd entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
So moved. Denise Kolpak.
Second by Brad Olson.
All right, we have first and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? All right, motion's carried. Next item is the proposed Moorhead UPass fees for the academic year. Lori, I believe you have an attachment for that.
Yes, if Brian will bring up the PowerPoint to I have a little excerpt in the PowerPoint for action items. Thank you. I can see that. So last meeting we had some proposed fees, but we had not yet met with the colleges and on the Moorhead side, and we have now met with them, and this is what we agreed upon. And so basically we always look at past years, and because we have solid information from past years for both enrollment and for budget costs and things, and we had a 14% increase in budget from 2022 to 2023. A lot of that was wages and fuel and parts, and so what we had decided as a group to do is to go with the current inflation rate, which at the time was 6%, instead of trying to come up with a certain amount of our revenue coming from the colleges. And so the fee that we're recommending is the $84,880, which is the 23-24 column that you see there in peach colors. And then that is distributed by college based on their percent of enrollment. And it shows enrollment up here, you know, as enrollment is down at MSUM and then up at both Concordia and M State. But you know, the net is down a little bit. So that's what we're, the recommended action is to recommend to the City Council approval of those rates with the colleges.
Questions for Lori? So Lori, for a student, is that included in their activity fees, or does the university do they just pay that, or do they do it a little bit differently depending on the university, or how do they do that?
I believe most of it's activity fees. There might be some supplementing at some of the colleges, but majority of it is activity fees.
Okay. Other questions for Lori?
Mr. Chairman, John Strand, I move approval.
Okay, we have a first.
And then Dawson, second.
We have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. All right, we'll move on to action item 2C, which is the discussion on the free and promotional fairs. Julie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, on our last meeting on March 23rd, we had some discussion regarding the free, reduced, promotional pilot fairs that we do throughout the year that we brought to the board. So I thought, well, I'm not going to re-up all of that. So then we did quite a bit of digging into agencies throughout the country to see what some of their programs and policies are regarding free or reduced fares. And we did see kind of a common theme going through these other transit agencies. A lot of them, it brought more focus on all these opportunities is really the way a lot of the agencies looked at it, to offer free rides because of COVID. And so they put in a lot of effort, and they have some of them had these big marketing programs they threw at it, and did all of the tracking, and they do monthly reports, and they take a look at what the impacts of all of this is. A lot of that stems from the fact that they wanted to get ridership as best they could during that time. But as we all know, that was one of the things we just had to let go. But out of that, it seemed to be that everyone was looking at, okay, there's this paradigm shift going on with riders, with drivers, staff, everybody in the transit industry, that suddenly we come out the other end and we're thinking, you know, hey, if we can do this remote work, we can do all that kind of stuff. We're going to stay home. So a lot of businesses have closed. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the downtown San Francisco, how that's impacted them out there. So what the agencies experienced during that time was we had the money to cover the operating costs that we have that go with any transit service. And the government made available the CARES and the ARPA funds. We did put that to good use, and we didn't really notice that we were running short of funds in any fashion. And most of them did that. So it was kind of an opportunity to test out this free fare or reduced fare that some of them ended up implementing. So the ones that discontinued the fares that were either free or reduced after this, a lot of them called it a trial period during the COVID pandemic. They discontinued it after the 1 to 2 year time frame where, the funds had either run out or they just opted not to participate in that anymore. So you saw that happen in a lot of them. With larger agencies, they had, of course, the ability to do a lot more with creative thinking, really is what it was. Those agencies that we were able to locate, Kansas City, Albuquerque, those are some really good examples of implementing this program, these fare-free, reduced fare programs, and really tracking what happened. But the common theme through all of them that we were looking at or talking to was they were able to get additional funding from either local, state resources. So a lot of them developed partnerships with, say, like social service agencies, and there was a whole variety of, everybody did it different. And it was really interesting. There was a lot of good stuff that we were looking at. So what we honed in on was, it seems to be the larger agencies that have a commitment to be able to be funded, and fares do not count towards what they're the most concerned about. They're trying to respond to some of the issues with, social service agencies that need it, low income, minority populations. So they're focusing on mostly services that serve those folks more so. So like if you're going through neighborhoods or locations where there's higher transit ridership because of lower income, or, it could be a one car family household. There was a whole variety of things that went into play. So anyway, what they were all very cognizant of and kept at the forefront was making sure that they're serving the entire population and not just focusing on areas that folks would be more likely to ride. They wanted to offer the opportunities to literally everyone. And it really was interesting information that came out. So if we go to the next slide, Brian, please. We came up with this draft policy. And what we're looking at is that we would like to be able to develop opportunities with other agencies or businesses, or develop partnerships. But we would like to have anything we bring forward, including what we did the last meeting. We would like to have any of that taken through the public hearing process, so that it's very transparent to the public and to elected officials and everyone why we're doing it and what we're doing. So that we try to encapsulate that in this policy draft. As you can see, it's a draft. And so we would like to be able to get our legal department to review this, any changes you may have as the board, and then move it forward so we have the opportunities to decide if this is what we want to do and go forward with anything that would be recommended by this board or the elected officials that we can put forth to the citizens. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, questions for Julie? Or comments? So Julie, your motion at this point is just to for you to go ahead and come up with a draft, but that the actual policy would be coming back to the coordinating board for a review of that and a final approval. So this is really just a motion to start the preliminary work on a draft.
Yes, that is correct.
And Mr. Chairman, this is Steve Lindahl. I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a first.
Denise Kolpak, I'll second. Sorry, go ahead.
That was Linda with a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion, signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? All right, motion is carried. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
We'll move on to action item 2D, which is the preliminary 2024 operating budget. Lori and Julie.
So the budget for Moorhead is not quite done yet. We're still waiting on some major numbers. We did hear back from the state of Minnesota, which is the majority of the funding that we use in Moorhead for operating. And they have notified us that they have capped the budget increases at 3% over the 2023's budget. But they also, on the state legislature, reduced the local match to 5%. Which, and the Office of Transit is saying, okay, we legislatively reduced your local match to the grant from 15 and 20%, depending on which service, to 5%. But we're asking you to invest that difference back into the system to pay for the budgets that we have not funded for you in the past 2 years. So the state of Minnesota has underfunded our budgets the past 2 years, and they're saying, use that difference to make it as whole as you can. So that's where we're moving forward with the state. So that was really good news for us, to make up that difference and be able to almost fully fund the transit system with the state portion. They have also notified us there's no new service for 2024. They're not funding any new service applications. And so we don't have any new service planned at this time. We did have a placeholder when we brought this to you last meeting. We have a placeholder in the capital budget for a on-demand transit vehicle, hoping that in 2025 or 2026, we could start a new on-demand service in areas of Moorhead where we don't have service now, where there are jobs that people want to get to. But it takes a while to get vehicles at this time. So the idea is that we would fund a vehicle in 24 and order it and hopefully have it in time to implement some new services in 25 or 26. So we put that placeholder in the capital budget. So the other big part of our budget, of course, is driver services. First Transit has been purchased by TransDev, and we have received a proposal from them. We're in option year 2 on our contract, and so we're under negotiations for that cost increase. Under our contract, there's 2 elements. We can look at driver wages separately as needed in the marketplace if we're finding that we still have driver shortages, which we find that we do. And then in addition to that, we can look at the consumer price index for our area and see, and we cannot exceed the consumer price index for anything else in our service contract. So those are the 2 pieces. They've given us 3 different alternatives to look at. We just got those yesterday, so those are currently under review, and so we're hoping to get that resolved and bring that into our budgets with some permanent numbers here on what we're going to do with driver services. The other big part of Moorhead's budget is Fargo's budget. And, we pay a portion of the Ground Transportation Center and the Metro Transit Garage, our technology and mobility management and paratransit services. Fargo has their draft budget in, but the HR department has not put in wages or any COLAs or anything like that, nor have they put insurance in yet. So it's hard to figure out Moorhead's share of those larger expenses until those numbers are put in. So we hope to get those numbers here in the immediate future as well. We do feel that fuel prices have stabilized, that we aren't expecting any large increases in fuel, which it may even go down. And we do Fargo does go out for bid for fuel every 6 months, I believe it is. And so we have a bid going out in July for that. Moorhead employees have a 3% COLA in 2024. It's the second year of a 3-year agreement with the unions and with the staff employees. So that is a known number. And every so many years, we also look at our fare structure. As you may recall, in 2022, we implemented this new account-based fare structure. And so we are not proposing any other fare changes in 2024 at this time. So the recommended motion there is to direct staff to move forward with operating budgets and grant applications in coordination with the Moorhead City Manager based on the considerations listed, and then to bring back a final budget to the MAT Coordinating Board at our next meeting.
Questions for Lori? Laura, you mentioned the Trans Development contract that they purchased First Transit. Is that, how many years are left, and do we have any options to extend, or are we in the final options of extending that contract?
We had a 2-year contract with 3 options, and we're in the second option year. So we have one more option year after this one.
Okay.
And with Transdev purchasing First Transit, they actually said that First Transit is a subsidiary at this point of Transdev,
okay.
So it's sort of still there.
Okay.
But it's called Transdev now.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Steve Lindaus. I'll make that motion.
We have a first.
Olson will second.
Second from Brad. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion is carried. All right, we'll move on to Fargo's. Julie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're along, obviously, the similar lines of Moorhead. However, we do not receive any significant amount of operating from the state of North Dakota. And there was nothing in the legislative session or the last couple of years that would lead me to believe or have any inkling that there would be any additional funding. So it hovers right around $400,000 a year that we get from them. And we put that all towards operating when we do receive it. We don't know if there's going to be any changes to any of that. Usually the funding that comes to any transit agencies through the state of North Dakota in the past have been based on license sales and some taxes that they have. So it's a fairly minimal amount, but hey, it's still money, so we are willing to take it. For the identified issues, it's of course exactly along the same lines of what Lori was just saying. We're trying to figure out the driver situation and what our finance department, just so everybody's aware, I think probably everybody is, our finance director left, and just in the last month the city of Fargo has appointed an interim director to take over, but their staffing is fairly short in that office. So they, in fairness to them, they just have not had the ability to get everything into the system for wages and benefits and COLAs and anything that's going to impact us. We were able to key in some information, but most of it is still a little up in the air. So at the same position really that Moorhead is in, and I know Moorhead's waiting for us on some stuff. So we are asking that we move forward and tie our application for grant funds in 2024 based on what the City of Fargo budget team is going to finalize. And we would like to bring back the proposed budget once we get all the numbers pulled together. So it's the same that Moorhead's doing. I feel bad bringing it to you guys without all the numbers sitting right in front of you, but we do need to at least get this step out of the way.
Okay. Questions for Julie?
This is Brad. I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a first by Brad,
Second by Denise.
second by Denise. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signal by saying yes.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. All right, we'll move on to our informational items, and on our agenda, item number 3, the 2023 operations report for March and April. Cole and Lori.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I did have a capital grant. Capital budget that I did in this slide is for Fargo's capital. We
Okay.
do. This is what we will be requesting through grants, hopefully for 2024. So my apologies. I should have said yes. And my next slide is the capitals. So just very quickly, what we're looking at, if you go across the columns on the top, we're going to focus on 2024 and out years beyond that, going through 2027. Those are estimates of what we're going to be looking at. But for our purposes here, we'll look at 2024. So we would like the opportunity to find and develop an area that we can have a Southwest area transit hub. This is tied to the West Acres discussions we have had in the past. So this will very likely be at West Acres, but we would like, so we kind of retitled it and repurposed it a little to be the Southwest area hub if for whatever reason we're not able to do anything at West Acres. So the estimate on that is there 2.2 million. That's a grand total. That's local and federal share. Same with the A&E services. Our mobility manager, that is a grant that we receive through the feds that we are able to have a position, and in our case it's Sean Kroll, where we have a mobility manager and 80% of that is paid through a federal grant. And then we skip over, we're not going to do, the next one is way down towards the bottom. Our metro area transit garage here where we're located, most of us are located, we are looking at doing some expansion, exploration, and we would like to, if the opportunity comes up to get even an A&E study done, that we would like to do that to hopefully look at meeting the needs as this expands as far as staff that we have on hand, drivers, our technicians, the garage, all that. It's a pretty cramped situation. But anyway, so at the very bottom on the left, the first column, I broke out what the local share request would be. So if we requested all projects and all the grants that we wanted, the local share would be the 3.150808. If we did it with the projects but excluded the MTG, it would be the 720,808. And if we excluded the MTG and the Southwest Hub, we'd only be asking for 40,808. And the reason there's some ambiguity is we do not know yet what grant opportunities will be out there for 2024. It's one of those chicken egg situations where, hey, there's all this money available. Are we able to move forward and request it? So that's why I put stuff in there that we would be interested in, but don't know if the funding is there. However, the minimum capital local match that we would request would be the 40,808.
And that would come back in the final budget then when you get that kind of finalized, Julie? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, any other questions for Julie on this?
Strand moves approval.
We have a first,
Lindell, second.
second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion's carried.
Thank you.
All right, informational items.
Thank you very much. So taking a look at some of the ridership trends that we see here, this information is from January through April, but it still gives a pretty good picture of what we're seeing in terms of ridership for 2023 compared to 2022. As Lori mentioned earlier, we do still have driver shortages, and because of that, we do still have decreased frequency with a few routes. If you look at Route 11 and Route 14, those are two that are experiencing those. Route 11 has one of the larger decreases in ridership compared to the rest of the routes here. And Route 14 seeing about the same amount. Route 13 seeing a pretty drastic increase in ridership. NDSU students oftentimes utilize that route, so increase in NDSU students coming back to the area, less online classes, so you see an increase there. Route 15 also has experienced frequency cuts. That one's staying fairly stable because that is one of our more popular routes. Route 16 also staying pretty stable compared to last year, an increase of 2%. Then looking at routes 17, 18, and 20. Earlier this year, we did decide to implement a few changes to Route 18 and Route 20 to increase consistency in those routes. We were seeing issues with both of those running over time and in turn not being able to make transfers to other routes. So that was implemented earlier this year, and as you can see for Route 18 and 20, we've seen drastic ridership increases. Route 17 interlines with Route 18, meaning that the drivers switch from 18 to 17, and if 18 was running late, it would cause 17 to run late also. So seeing a slight increase in 17, most likely due to 18 being more consistent. Route 24 is also seeing increased ridership, about 8%. That's one of our West Fargo routes, potentially seeing some increased ridership out there. Our Link FM service, this data is from the Celtic Festival back a couple months ago. We did see about double the ridership for that event, so that's very nice to see. I know more information was pushed out to event organizers and event attendees, so that seems to have done the trick. The industrial park, well, on-demand service now and the NDSU on-demand service are both seeing fairly drastic decreases. We did switch from TapRide to Transloc, another app earlier this year, so I would imagine that's probably where those decreases are coming in. Some number or some percentage of ridership just didn't transfer onto the new app. Paratransit's looking fairly consistent. Back in 2020, we did see some pretty drastic increases going all the way up to 2022, and it seems like we're kind of finally stabilizing at this point, but we're looking to see that higher ridership continue. Then looking at the NDSU routes 31 through 36, majority of which are all seeing increases in ridership. Route 32 is down slightly, down about 5%. Route 34 did see a very drastic increase in ridership. We tried to do a bit of research on that. We adjusted a few things, made one of the main stops a time point so that students can know exactly when the bus is going to get there, and we believe that that has something to do with the increase. Next slide, please.
So Moorhead ridership is also increasing, with the exception of Route 6 in Dilworth, which was under major construction this past construction season, and I think that's going to go up on a regular basis after all those roads have been completed. I mean, we couldn't even get into some areas that we normally served, and so that made it difficult. Every day there was a new detour for a period of time there. So, we're going to see that go up, I'm sure. But otherwise, all the routes are doing good. We're seeing regular ridership, and Route 2, we did have a frequency decrease on that because of driver shortages, but it's not at this time affecting ridership at all. So it's still on the rise there. And then Cole put in, you guys wanted to see, pre-COVID versus now how ridership is returning to normal. So he did a 5-year look. So 2019, which would be, I guess, 4 years ago, was pre-COVID versus, what we did in 2022 and 2023. And you could see overall we're up 10.95% over last year, but we're getting closer to where we were pre-COVID. And Fargo as well. I'll let Cole talk about that.
Yeah, it's about the same case for Fargo. Still fairly low compared to pre-COVID levels, but we are seeing about the same percentage increases here on Moorhead.
Okay, next slide. Yeah, thank you.
And then this just takes a look at college ridership here. We're seeing fairly substantial increases across the board, with kind of a major one being M-State, going from approximately 2,000 rides to 4,500 rides. So quite an increase there. Still fairly solid with NDSU, MSUM, Concordia, and NDSCS as well. Next slide, please.
So Senior Ride is also seeing an increase over 2022 of 8.75%. We are 82% recovered from COVID, so we're getting closer to our pre-COVID ridership levels on Senior Ride. So that's doing quite well.
And then the last slide that we have here shows our 5-year trend. Taking a look at ridership from previous years pre-COVID. 2020 is not included in this one just because that was a pretty odd year in terms of ridership. So as you can see, 2018 and 2019 were still fairly high compared to 21, 22, 23. Looking towards April here, we see 2023 being highest ridership earlier in the year, and then 2021 having an increase in ridership over 2023. That's most likely due to the fact that we had free fares back in 2021, and those free fares ended in April, and that's when you see the drastic decrease in ridership towards that. Also, one thing I didn't mention in the previous slides, with the weather that we had this last year, we did have a significant amount of service delays, service cancellations. So in March and April timeframe of this year, we did see lower ridership than we most likely would have if we didn't have those extreme conditions. Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay, questions for Cole or Lori?
This is Ryan Nelson with Moorhead. Cole or Lori, the M-State jumped that 132% ridership increase, which is great, obviously. Was there anything that that we did differently there? Was there a route change, or was there a marketing thing, or was there any indicators that
Enrollment
that
is
one
up.
jumped so much?
Yeah, enrollment is up at M-State. And we did do some marketing with them a bit. Well, we did with most of the colleges. We, do some regular marketing and go on campus for certain events. But I think mostly it's just enrollment is up. And they do a good job of marketing transit service to their students as well.
All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, this is Steve Lindos. I do have a question. So Route 34 in NDSU campus, you saw this nice significant increase. Again, that was attributed, you think, mostly to the kind of ability for students to see when the bus was coming?
Yep, that's correct. On that timetable, we previously didn't have the stop by Niskanen Hall north of campus as one of our time points. So students didn't necessarily know what time the bus was going to be there. Just including that on the timetable, having a direct time that students know, okay, I have to be here by 35 after the hour or whatever it is. this allows them to kind of plan out their day and know that the bus is going to be there at that specific time. So we believe that did help quite a bit.
Yeah. So overall, I think that, myself also in strange cities when I'm waiting for a bus, I always like to know when the bus is coming. Then, is the bus actually coming or did it actually pass already and you missed it? And so one of the questions is do we have a way to kind of track app usage? Maybe even in some of surveys, people think, hey, is this helping you? I'm thinking really along the lines of the college students too, because they're the ones, at least in my mind, that might be more inclined to use a lot of the apps and stuff.
Yeah, we can absolutely do surveys for the colleges. I don't believe that we have a way to track usage as is, but one thing that we have noticed over the last couple of years, students are definitely jumping from our printed paper guides that we give out at orientations and first week of NDSU fall semesters over to our app and our website just to be able to check times, be able to check our live tracker, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We do have new software too that we're purchasing. So I think part of our issue has been our software program. It's getting quite old. It's been sold. The company's been sold a couple of times. And so Route Match, which is our current, that tracks where the buses are live and such, I think that is not working as well as it used to. So we do have in the 2023 budget to purchase a new software system, and Cole and Jordan have been on the North Dakota. They went out for bids with the state of North Dakota and have been on the steering committee reviewing all of the software packages, and they're getting close to a contract where we can select the contractor and move forward with that. So we hope to see some great improvements on our on-time performance and the ability to see the bus when it's coming in live tracking, and that I think the students will like to see that improvement.
Thanks. That's great.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Brad. You stated that Route 34 has that capability to track the whereabouts of the buses. Is that the only route that does that, or is that capable for all routes?
We are able to do that for all routes.
Okay.
On our website, we have a live tracker on our homepage, and with that, students or other bus users are able to select the route that they're wanting to see, and our GPS tracking on our vehicles is able to show them exactly where that bus is in real time.
Yeah, what's missing? I'm sorry, I was just going to say, Britt, what's missing is that it used to be that you could be in a certain part of the app and see when your bus is coming to a specific bus stop without having to go into the full live tracking piece, where you watch the bus go around and then you find your stop and click on it. So I think there's going to be some improvements for picking your favorite bus stops and when it'll show. And Cole, you can correct me if that's wrong, but that's something that we used to have that doesn't quite work the way it used to.
Yeah, that's correct. With the new software options, a lot of them have the ability to have riders enter in their stop location and then be able to see exactly how far away their next bus is going to be. Currently, we don't have that available. Riders would have to view the live tracker and watch the bus as it's coming along, but yeah, being able to see exactly like this bus is going to be here in 5 minutes. I know to be there by this time will definitely help out our riders.
And when's the new
thank you.
software supposed to be there? What's the time schedule for that?
We're expecting beginning of 2024 to have it implemented.
Okay.
So
Other
in
questions?
our software, just so you know, our Farebox software, when someone makes a payment on the Farebox, it does look for the closest bus stop and put in a location code. And so we can, on our route, see where people are getting on the bus by the closest bus stop that we have coded in there. So we do have some data on that. we have some software called Remix software, which is a route planning software where you can pull up data that shows where people are riding the most along your route. So when you're tweaking your routes or making route changes, you know where the most people are riding, so you don't affect large amounts of people. You know, don't make a change where you're moving away from a bus stop that's very popular, that kind of thing. So we have some software that's is helpful with route planning, and just recently they put that data into that Remix software to show us the ridership against the route in a real clear picture without us having to manipulate the data, manually. So that's an improvement as well.
Great. Other questions? Okay, hearing none. Just a congratulations to Steve on your new appointment, but also sorry to see you. It sounds like you'll be leaving us, the council, and I'm assuming will not be on our board, and we'll miss you. And thank you for your service, Steve.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually, the fellowship requires moving to DC, where there's a plethora of transit options. And so I'm
Well, if you get any good
enmeshed.
ideas or you see anything, make sure you shoot them back this way.
Yes,
I
please.
absolutely will.
Next meeting, any thoughts on Lori and Julie when we'd have our next meeting? Just kind of give a heads up.
We would like to cancel the July meeting. I think it's normally scheduled for the 3rd. I think it's like the 19th of July,
Right.
because we have grants due July 31st
Okay.
on the Minnesota side. So it's too busy a time to try to pull something together. So then our next meeting would be in September. I believe it's September 20th.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Hearing none, we thank you for your attendance today, and we'll be officially adjourned.